Hey everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Lori, and I am going to do over the next 4, maybe 5, we'll see, every single day, like these next 5 videos, 4 to 5 videos, is going to be on ego death. You hear me talk a lot about the ego, right? And I've had a lot of, I really like Sigmund Freud. It's something that you study, something that you, and that's something that I've really went down that rabbit hole of, and it just really aligns. And so you have your id, your super ego, and your ego. And we'll get into that. But at the end of the day, you're not really killing off your ego. You're not letting the ego have power over you, because your ego is part of who you are. Like, that's everything that you do. The issue comes when your ego kicks into high gear and starts taking control over you, your insecurities and all of that stuff. So there's 4 different levels to sort of this ego death and enlightenment. There's 4 different levels, but it can transcend over a long period of time. So under no circumstances should you think that this is a fast process. Hard pass, not a fast process. At no point should you think it's going to be easy. It's going to be actually terrifying at times, because it's going to have you reevaluate everything that you were taught. So yeah, not supposed to be super easy. So you have to, number 1, identify your why, right? Let's talk a little bit about that. We're going to have to identify your why as to why you want to shake your ego, why you want to be able to not let the ego control you anymore. The ego are things like, expecting you out of people, getting your feelings hurt all the time, being super sensitive, all of these various things that come into play. But do you want to shed your ego because you want to just feel better, or do you want to really understand the process of who you are? And that's going to be your big secret, right? Like I said, you have your id, your super ego, which I've talked about before. Your id, the super ego, and then you have your ego, which is the ego is kind of the bridge between the two. And when you're living in a space of ego, it's an I, me, I. I feel this way, you make me feel this way. Yes, it is all about you, but for you. And this is that big thing with your ego. It's, you don't need to be anybody's priority, but you do need to be your own priority. Now that's an ego thing, right? So when you realize that people aren't you, they don't have to respond to you, they don't have to do those things like that, your relationships become a lot stronger. So let's talk about step 1 of ego death. And that could be why you're here right now. Could be why you do sessions with me. I work with people all over the world, and especially on ego, staying present and things like that, grounding, is your spiritual awakening. One day you're just like, oh my gosh, I kind of am tired of my own stuff. Like, you're almost tired of yourself. Like, you're like, why am I constantly feeling the need to get the last word in? Why do I always need it? Which is like always needing to be right. Why am I trying to manipulate people to get them to do what I want to do, because I can't seem to accept that I can't let go of things? When you're getting to that point, but see, you have to be to that point. You can't make other people be at that point. You can't be like, well, if they would just get off their ego. Well, yeah, we could all say that. So again, ego, losing the ego, setting the ego aside, is allowing other people to do things on their own terms. So this is here for whoever wants it, whenever they want it, right? You don't have to do it today, but it's whenever you want it. So that first piece of it is the spiritual awakening. So what might that look like, okay? You might just be like, wow, I can't live this way anymore. Not thinking like unaliving or anything like we're not thinking from a negative space, but like, you know what? I just don't want to function like this anymore. I really want to be able to, feel more whole. But you're having it to where it's a strong pull, not just a desire because you just had an argument with mom and dad or your spouse and you just want to feel better. It cannot be instant gratification. And in this spiritual awakening, there's this part of you that says, I don't care what I need to do. I don't care the level of work that I need to do. I'm willing to commit to it. So before you even consider going, oh, well, I'll just have this ego death and I'll be fine. Absolutely not, because it's a process. And part of that is going to be in forgiveness of others. Yep. Being able to let go of things comes from let go of the situation in which was inflicted upon you or how they handled it. And it's the way of releasing that power of saying that if I don't accept that this person doesn't have to apologize to me in order for me to move forward, then I'm not going to move, then they're just a jerk. Okay, that's not, no. So if you're not willing, and that's why the spiritual awakening is the big piece of it. You might not have achieved this yet, and that's okay. This is here, these next 5 videos are going to be here for you whenever you do get to that space. It doesn't have to be today, but you have to be willing to do these 5 things, okay? Before you start on this ego death journey, be willing to do these 5 things. Number 1, understand it's going to be hard and it's going to take time. So patience and carrying no expectation. Yep, don't carry the expectation of feeling better. It's a process. You have to fall in love with the process. That's number 1. Number 2, you will lose people on this journey. Yes, not might, not could. You absolutely will lose people on this journey, and that's okay. It's not really a loss. I want you to start reevaluating that mindset. And I want you to say, okay, maybe it feels like a loss. That's fine. You're going to process your feelings in the 5 journals. 5 seems to be this like magic number. But you have to understand that the universe is removing roadblocks from you so you can achieve your best and highest good. And sometimes they're people. Sometimes it's people you've known all your life. Sometimes it's family. Sometimes it's a spouse. Sometimes it's a child. But you have to be clear in that. So that's number 2. So you got 1. You got 2. Number 3, you have to deal with the hardest things. The things that trigger you are the things you must face. That's the shadow work, which we'll talk about in the next video. We'll talk about a little shadow self, but because that's part of the ego death too. So again, that's why I said it's a spiritual awakening. If you're not there, don't pretend like you got 1. You have to cover all 5 of these. If you only got 1 and you're not there yet, that's okay. You then just have this for when you're ready to get through those 5. But understand you have to be willing to deal with your deepest, darkest. The things in which you fear, we will do. So if you ever do a session with me privately, we're going to pull this up. We are going to walk through the fire. I want you to be triggered. I want you to get to the space so you can see that the power is on the other side of that. Okay, so number 3, be willing to face your triggers head on. So we're covering some pretty hard stuff here. So that's why don't just say that you want to feel better, because that's not a thing when you're ego. If you want to feel better, you're going to have to really go through this like wartime, a little bit of wartime here, but you got to be willing to do it. So we're at 3. So you got 2 more, right? You're like, oh my gosh, I got these 3. They're already hard. What are these other 2? Okay. Dedication to the commitment, committing and dedicating to your journey. The first one was patience. The reason this one's down on the list a little bit is because this is not about how you feel about being motivated to do your 5 journals, motivated to do the work. Doesn't matter. Don't care how you feel about it. You have to be willing that even when you don't have that fire in you, because by the way, when we start our journey on anything, a diet, a fitness routine, whatever it is that we're doing, we start guns blazing. We're ready to go, balls to the wall. Let's do this. Here we go. And then it starts to get a little challenging, or it's not as fun as it once was. And you go, I can like miss a day. It's fine. And it may happen. That's fine. But you have to be dedicated. So are you dedicated to feel that pain? Are you dedicated to the fact that you're going to lose people? Are you dedicated to the process? Got to be ready for that. That's 4. Okay. Number 5, don't worry about other people's opinions on your journey. You're going to have to be okay with this. This is the 5th one. Be okay with other people not understanding you. Be okay. You guys know, I'll go out and I'll hug a tree. I don't care what kind of clothing I'm wearing. I don't care the weather. I'm gonna hug a tree. I might be all up on the tree like we're dating. I don't care what other people think about it because it's best for my journey. I'm not going to explain my journey to everybody because I don't need their feedback. This is my journey. So you have to be willing to go through your sort of weird, because we're all weird. Don't let anybody lie to you and tell you that we're not weird. That's what life is. We're weird. And I want you to go through it, but be willing to go through it. And if your family members, and this will happen, not might, because remember I said you'll lose people, but some people you won't lose, but they're going to really try their hand. They're going to get judgy. They're going to say you're selfish. They're going to say you're self-absorbed. They're going to say, oh, you're all about yourself now, that all you're doing is taking care of you. Be ready for that. Now, if you answered yes, you can do all of those things, I said it's going to be hard. Under no circumstances should you think this is easy. It does take time. It could take months, years, decades. Be committed to it. If you answered yes to that, that is step one, and a good way to wrap this video up of let's start going down the road of some other ego death things. And again, you're going to watch these hopefully in succession, 5, as they come out. And then once those 5 days are up, you can go back and watch them. Don't think you're supposed to do this in a day. This is just a point of reference and a guide that you can always come back to, like a GPS map. That's all. So welcome to step one.